All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Buccaneers Daily. Guys, training camp is officially here. We're actually super close to preseason. We're pretty close to the regular season. We're less than 2 months away. But Buccaneers football is officially back, and good news is already coming out of training camp. Apparently, Baker Mayfield is lighting it up right now. Now, keep in mind, the Buccaneers won't announce the starting quarterback probably until like 2 or 3 games into preseason, unless it was just clear cut decisive. But Baker Mayfield, Kyle Trask, that's the big question mark right now. Who's QB1 to start off the regular season? We talked in our last Buccaneers video why this team is flying pretty under the radar. This was last year was just obviously a dumpster fire, but you still have a Super Bowl caliber roster. The defense is still loaded. There's so much talent on the defensive side. There's still so many weapons on the offensive side. And you also have enticing young guys like Rachaad White set to be the starting running back. I think he's an absolute stud. I can't wait for him. You have Cade Otton entering his sophomore campaign. There's a lot to be excited about with Tampa Bay, and everyone's just writing them off already. They either have them as the worst team in the league or the second worst team in the league. Baker Mayfield, former first pick in the draft. Kyle Trask, a couple of years ago, selected in the second round. But to me, the difference maker with the Buccaneers offense is as simple as going from Byron Leftwich to Dave Canales. Coming from Seattle, there's going to be so much more creativity with the Buccaneers offense this upcoming season. I think all of us pretty much knew in the back of our heads around this time last year that Leftwich just wasn't the guy. I love Byron Leftwich, but he just wasn't the guy, right? Dave Canales is going to bring an extra level, actually several extra levels to this offense this upcoming season. Keep in mind, the Seahawks had the sixth most passing attempts in the league last year from outside the pocket, 97 attempts compared to the Bucs only 20, which was dead last in the league. Now, I think Baker Mayfield will be the starting quarterback day one. I think Kyle Trask is a stud, but I am not off the Baker boat. I just genuinely think Baker Mayfield has so much talent, and I think Dave Canales is a great coach to extract all of that and just get the best from Baker Mayfield. In the Carolina tenure last season, Baker looked bad, but with the Rams, he brought this like chip on the shoulder, this edge, this like, we're not making the Super Bowl again, but we're going to make this game as difficult as possible for you. So I just love the mentality, the confidence that Baker Mayfield brings to the Buccaneers. But once again, former second pick in the draft, I've mentioned pretty much every video how much I love and how big I am on Kyle Trask. But I really think the simple addition of Dave Canales is going to go a really long way. And simply put, because of the departure of Tom Brady, nobody's really talking about it outside of Buccaneers fans. Everybody's focused on the Chargers, any other new offensive coordinator except for the Buccaneers. So, offensively is where it's going to come down to. And I think we all know that. But at the end of the day, you have, once again, just such a talented defense that all you really need for my quarterback to do is limit turnovers. And hopefully Rachaad White is going to be the stud that I'm anticipating him to be, because if he is, that's going to make whoever is the starting quarterback's job that much easier. But, we look at Mike Evans still being on the roster. We look at Chris Godwin still being on the roster. I think the wide receiver already. He's broken statistic after statistic after statistic, right? He's a beast, and he's still not old. He's 29 years old in the prime of his career. So Kyle Trask, Baker Mayfield, Mike Evans, right? That's going to be a connection. Chris Godwin, one of the more under-recognized, underrated wide receiver twos in the league. I think people are fully aware that Chris Godwin's a really talented wide receiver, but I don't think people know just how big of an impact. It's like T. Higgins and Jamar Chase, right? Chris Godwin, 3 of the last 4 seasons, he's had over 1,000 receiving yards. Like, the dude's a stud. The dude's a Pro Bowler. Like, he's 27 years old. You've got a bunch of threats on the offensive side of things. And you still have Russell Gage. And by the way, I'm really excited about rookie out of Nebraska, Trey Palmer. You usually have about 15 or so wide receivers from the NFL draft make an impact day one in the NFL. And obviously, you're playing behind Mike Evans and Chris Godwin, and you're also behind Russell Gage. As we experienced last year, Russell Gage will be probably dealing with some injuries, as every wide receiver room does. So there's going to be opportunities for Trey Palmer, and it's up to him to make the most of it. And I'm feeling pretty optimistic about it, right? Cade Otton, just one of these threats on the offensive side of things that, takes tight ends a while to adjust to the NFL. Right. It's actually pretty rare to get like a tight end, like an all-around tight end who can do a little bit of everything. Apparently, one of the big plays from a couple of days ago, I think it was the first day of training camp a couple of days ago, was Baker Mayfield to Cade Otton on a play action pass, just wide open touchdown. Cade had a really solid rookie season. Granted that the offense was just a disaster. Right? 42 catches, 391 yards, 2 touchdowns. He only missed 1 game. But at 24 years old, I think Cade Otton, for whoever the quarterback's going to be, is going to be a big impact. And I think he's going to have over 500 receiving yards and kind of establish his name as, a rising, legitimate tight end in the National Football League. So altogether, I'm still pretty big on Tampa, man. And I know, everybody is talking about in the NFC South, Carolina, the Saints obviously getting Derek Carr, spending a bunch of money, really bolstering their roster. The Falcons have an interesting team, drafting Bijan Robinson, still kind of waiting to see what they have with Desmond Ridder. And then obviously a new QB heading on over to Carolina. The competition's there. The future looks good in the division, but for right now, it's still wide open. Just like last season, it's wide open. And honestly, if Tampa even just replicated what they did last year, I'm not saying that's going to get you in the playoffs, but you're going to be quite close to the playoffs. I don't think there's a 10-win team in the NFC South. So I think the Buccaneers are poised to be a huge sleeper in the league. Long-term is still good because, let's say, the Buccaneers overexceed expectations, right? They have kind of I think a similar team would be the Seattle Seahawks, where they were pretty much poised to enter a rebuild, which was difficult for them because it's like, all right, they have a really talented roster. There are some talented veterans. There's some talent. There's a lot of talented young players. There's some talented depth pieces. Geno Smith, we're going to give him the reins. If not, we're going to go Drew Lock. It reminds me a lot of this Buccaneers team where they have a playoff caliber roster. And, keep in mind, man, the Seahawks were supposed to win 4 or 5 games last year. They won 9. They had the lead going into the second half against San Francisco and wild card weekend. Like, you just never know, right? You never know. But worst case scenario, the Buccaneers are going to be a bottom 10 team, right? And that's a good thing because there's projected to be 4 quarterback studs being selected in the first 10 picks. So it's a quarterback heavy draft. And if the Buccaneers aren't good, well, here's an elite, hopefully, quarterback. So it's a win-win for the Buccaneers, but all things considered, I think they look pretty good. Guys, hit that like button, hit that sub button. I am going to cover the Buccaneers as I do. Hit the like button, hit that sub button for Daily Bucs content. But let me know what you guys are thinking. Who's QB1 next season if you had to decide right now or take a guess?